2024 पेपर वन वेरिएंट वन। आई होप सबने क्या पेपर निकाल लिया ये वाला। नहीं यार, मैच नहीं देखा। असल में मैच यार, एक्चुअली आई वाज अ क्रिकेट फैन इनिशियली, अब फिर जितनी लॉसेस हुई है ना पाकिस्तान की, फिर आई हैव स्टॉप वाचिंग क्रिकेट। चलो, सो दिस इज पेपर वन वेरिएंट वन। लेट्स स्टार्ट। A measuring cylinder containing water in a top pan balance. An object is placed onto the measuring cylinder. Perfect. What is the mass and what is the volume of the object? Okay, so you have to calculate the mass and the volume of the object. Very, very easy to calculate the mass. How can you calculate the mass? First of all, let's calculate the mass. You will take the initial reading of the electronic balance and subtract it from the final reading, or you can say it from the top pan balance. Mass is equals to the final reading of mass minus the initial reading of mass. Final reading is 54, initial reading is 20. The mass comes out to be 34 grams. If you see here, there are two options of 34 grams. A and B gets cancelled out. So we will also have to calculate the volume. We will also have to calculate the volume. How will you calculate the volume? If you see here, if you focus a bit, this lies in the middle. This lies in the middle. So the initial volume is what? 7.5 cm cube. What is your final volume? Your final volume is 17.5 cm cube. Can you calculate the volume of the object? Yes, final volume minus initial volume. Final is 17.5, initial is 7.5. Answer comes out to be 10 cm cube. The answer for this is C. Which quantity is a vector quantity? Yes, another very, very easy question. Which quantity is a vector quantity, beta? Vector quantity कौन सी है? Very, very easy. Force is a vector. B is your answer. B is your answer. Simple as that. Let's further move ahead. Yeah. The table shows the distance traveled by a car in each 2-second time interval during a 12-second period of its journey. Perfect. So we are given the distance traveled by the car in each 2-second interval. Which statement describes the motion of the car? Okay, so let's examine that. In the first 2 seconds, you are traveling a distance of 10 meters. Then in the next 2 seconds, you are traveling a distance of 10 meters. Then in the next 2 seconds, your distance increases to 11 meters. Then in the next 2 seconds, your distance increases to 13 meters. Next 2 seconds, your distance increases to 16. Next 2 seconds, your distance increases to 23. So you can say for the first 4 seconds, the car is moving with constant speed. And then it is moving with what? Non uniform acceleration. A is your answer. Now, how do I know that I am moving with non uniform acceleration? How do I know that the car is moving with non uniform acceleration? This is not something that you have to rectify. This is not something that you have to rectify. This can easily be seen from the values. Can you see in the 4 to 6 seconds, you are traveling 11 meters? Then in the 6 to 8 seconds, you are traveling 13 meters. So initially, there was an increment of plus 1. Then there was an increment of plus 2. Then there was an increment of plus 3. Then there was an increment of plus 7. This is a signal of non uniform acceleration. This is a signal of non-uniform acceleration. Sir, how would have uniform acceleration look like? Let's say 11 here, then let's say 12 here, then 13 here, then 14 here. This would have been uniform acceleration. This would have been uniform acceleration. A is your answer. Perfect. Let's further move ahead. Two cubes x and y have the same mass. Perfect. But the length of side of x is twice that of y. Perfect. So let's say these are the details for x, these are the details for y. Both of them have the same mass m and m. Perfect. But the length of a side of x is twice. So let's say this is 2l, this is l. Perfect. What is the value of the ratio of the density of x divided by the density of y? How do you calculate densities? Density of x is equals to what? Mass over volume. What is the mass of x? M. What is the volume? 2L cube. This comes out to be what? M over 8L cube. This is the density of x. How can you calculate the density of y? Mass over L cube. Simple. You have to calculate the ratio of the densities. What will you do? Density of x divided by density of y. What is density of x? M over 8L cube divided by density of y. M over 8L cube. L cube cancel out. M cancel out. Your answer will come out to be 1 over 8. A is your answer. An object slides down on a frictionless slope. What does the keyword of frictionless means? That means no friction. What does the keyword of frictionless mean? That means no friction. As the object presses on the surface pushes back on the object. Perfect. So the object is pressing down on the surface. How will the object press down on the surface? Like this. If the surface pushes back, if the surface pushes back, according to Newton's third law, which force will the object experience? See, simple as that. Any ambiguities in the first five MCQs भाई कोई मसला है in the first five MCQs आगे बढ़े always remember चलो यहाँ पे key point लिख लो if you guys are so tensed about this यहाँ पे key point लिख लो the contact force the contact force between between the object and surface will always be at 90 degrees will always be at 90 degrees. Can you see that the object and the surface have a contact force or a downward force at which angle? At an angle of 90 degree. The object is pushing down on the surface at an angle of 90 degree. How will the surface push back on the object? An upward and equal force according to Newton's third law. C is your answer. ऑल क्लियर शुड वी मूव अहेड एनी एम्बिग्विटीज भाई अभी भी कोई एम्बिग्विटीज हैं मुझे बता दो लिटरली कोई मसला नहीं ठीक है आगे बढ़े चलो लेट्स मूव अहेड बिल्कुल ही यू शुडंट बी अफ्रेड ऑफ आस्किंग क्वेश्चंस ठीक है लेट्स मूव ऑन टू क्वेश्चन 6 अ कार ट्रैवलिंग ऑन अ स्ट्रेट रोड breaks and comes to a stop perfect. Which row gives the expression for calculating the thinking distance and give a variable that affects that thinking distance? Okay. So, do you remember that stopping distance used to be equal to what? Stopping distance used to be equal to the braking distance plus thinking distance. So, if you have to calculate the thinking distance, what will you do? You will take the braking distance to the left hand side. Stopping distance minus braking distance is your thinking distance. Which variable affects the thinking distance? The speed of the car. D is your answer. Simple as that. Which variable affects the thinking distance? Speed of the car. D is your answer. Let's further move ahead. An unstretched spring of length 15 centimeter. Okay, so this is your unstretched length, that is L naught. Stretches by 4 centimeter when a mass of weight 6 Newton is suspended from it. The spring does not exceed the limit of proportionality. What is the length of the spring? Total length of the spring when a weight of the mass suspended is 3 Newton. Perfect. So now you have to realize what is the total length of a spring. With the total length of a spring consists of two components. Total length of a spring consists of two components, unstretched length plus extension. Can you see you are already given the unstretched length? And unstretched length never changes. You also know that the spring is extending by what? The spring is extended by what? 6 Newton causes the spring to extend by what? 4 centimeter. Okay, so we were seeing this question. So we have an unstretched spring of length 15 centimeter. It stretches by 4 centimeter when a mass of 6 Newton is applied. Perfect. The spring does not exceed the limit of proportionality. We have to calculate the total length of the spring when the weight is what? When the weight attached is 3 Newton. Perfect. So you have to realize that the total length, you have to realize, beta, that the total length of a spring consists of two components. किसी भी स्प्रिंग की टोटल लेंथ टू कंपोनेंट से बनी होती है. The spring की total length consists of two components, unstretched length plus the extension. Unstretched length plus the extension. What is the unstretched length? Unstretched length is what? 15. Can you calculate the extension? Yes. If 6 Newton is causing an extension of 4 centimeter, 3 Newton will cause an extension of what? If 6 Newton is causing an extension of 4 centimeter, what will be the extension E due to the 3 Newton? Simple as that. Extension E will be 3 into 4 divided by 6. This comes out to be what? 1, 2, 2 centimeter. Simple. So the extension comes out to be 2 centimeter when you are applying a 3 Newton ki force. And you have to remember that the total length of a spring is equals to what? The unstretched length plus the extension. Unstretched length is 15. The extension is 2. Can you calculate the total length? Unstretched length is 15 plus the total length, that is 2. Unstretched length is 15 plus the extension, that is 2. The total length comes out to be 17 centimeters. D is your answer. Simple as that. Nothing complicated. Let's do question number 8 as well. Which statement describes the moment of a force about a pivot are correct? The moment of a force is a measure of the turning effect of the force. Yeah, this seems correct. The moment of a force is equal to the force multiplied by the perpendicular distance from the pivot. Yeah, this is also correct. C is incorrect. A is the correct answer. 1 and 2 statements are correct. Let's further move ahead. Four objects have identical shapes but different distribution of masses. Okay, the center of gravity of each object is shown by the dot mark G. Which object is the most stable? For an object to be more stable, what should happen? The center of gravity should be lowest. For an object to be more stable, the center of gravity should be lowest. A cannot be your answer. B cannot be your answer. In C and D, which object has the lowest center of gravity? C. So C is your answer. Let's further move ahead. An object of mass 2 kg is pushed up a slope at a steady speed of 2 ms minus 1. Which calculation gives the change in gravitational potential energy from top to bottom? Okay, we have to calculate the change in gravitational potential energy from top to bottom. How can we calculate that? How can we calculate the change in gravitational potential energy from top to bottom? Very, very easy. The change in gravitational potential energy is equals to what? Mass, gravitational field strength into change in height. What is the mass? 5. What is the gravitational field strength? 9.8. What is the change in height? 3. Any answers like that? B is your answer. Simple as that. B is your answer. Any questions in the first 10 MCQs भाई? आगे हम next class में continue करेंगे. Any ambiguities in the first 10 questions? A student of mass 60 kg climbs some steps. He travels a horizontal distance of 2 meters and a vertical distance of 1.5 meters. Perfect, perfect. So you have to calculate what? Calculate or what is the work done against the force of gravity? Please pay attention to the wording. You have to calculate work done against the force of gravity. You have to calculate the work done against the force of gravity. How are you going to do it? You have to calculate the work done against the force of gravity. What is the force of gravity? The force of gravity is the weight of this person acting downward. What is the weight of this person acting downward? 60 into 9.8. That comes out to be what? 60 into 9.8. This comes out to be 588 Newton. 588 Newton. So the force of gravity is weight and that is acting vertically downward. Whenever we calculate work done, do you remember we take the force and multiply it with the distance in the direction of the force? The force is 588. What is the distance in the direction of force? 1.5. Can you calculate the work done against gravity? 588 into 1.5. This comes out to be 882 joules. This comes out to be 882 joules. Any answers like that? C is your answer. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. Let's see question number 12. Which method of producing electricity does not involve a turbine? Okay, which method of producing electricity does not involve a turbine? In hydroelectric power station, yes, you do have a turbine. In solar cells, no, we don't have a turbine in solar cells. C is your answer. See, in nuclear power stations as well, you have a turbine. Why? Because the steam that is generated in nuclear power station causes the rotation of a turbine. So सिर्फ सोलर सेल्स में आपके पास टर्बाइन नहीं होता, सिर्फ सोलर सेल्स में आपके पास टर्बाइंस नहीं होता. Let's further move ahead. The input power to a lamp is this. The lamp weighs 2.7 joules of energy in 3 seconds. Perfect. What is the efficiency of the lamp? Perfect. So the input power is this. Perfect. Can you calculate the wasted power? Can you calculate the power that is wasted? Yeah, that is energy 2.7 over the time, because power is equals to energy over time. So 2.7 over 3 is 0.9 volts of energy that is wasted. Okay, 0.9 volts of energy is wasted. Okay, if 0.9 volts of energy is wasted, what is the useful energy? What is the useful output energy? Can you calculate that? Total is 6 minus 0.9. This comes out to be 5.1 of output energy. You have the input as well. Can you calculate the efficiency? Yes. Efficiency is equals to what? Let's put it here. Efficiency is equals to power output divided by power input multiplied by 100. What is your power output? 5.1. Power input is 6 multiplied by 100. 5.1 divided by 6 into 100. This comes out to be what? 85%, or you can say 0.85 is your answer. C is your answer. Efficiencies can be written in both. हाँ हाँ पूछो क्या सवाल है? A camera is taken underwater and left at a depth of 8 meter. Perfect. Atmospheric pressure is this. The density of water is this. What is the total pressure acting on the camera? Perfect. What will be the total pressure acting on the camera? The total pressure acting on the camera will be equal to what? Let's say you have a situation like this. Let's remove the upper half, and let's say your this is your surface level. Let's say your camera is at a depth of 8 meters. Perfect. This is your camera. The total pressure at the camera will be equal to what? Atmospheric pressure plus the pressure due to the liquid. What is the atmospheric pressure? 1,000,000 plus. What is the pressure due to the liquid? Density, that is 1000, into the gravitational field distance, that is 9.8, into the height, that is 8. Let's calculate it. 1000 into 9.8 into 8 plus 100. This comes out to be 178,400. D is your answer. Simple as that. The answer is 178,400 pascals. Let's see question number 15. In which example are the particles in fixed positions? Okay, so when are particles in fixed position? Yes, particles are in fixed position when they are in a solid. Ice in an ice cube. Yes, A is your answer because this is a solid. A gas expands slowly and its temperature remains constant. Whenever the temperature remains constant, what happens? Boyle's law is applicable. Pressure is inversely proportional to volume. And since the gas is expanding, the volume will be increasing. Pressure might be decreasing. Let's see whether we have any options like that. They, what happens to the gas particles? They move apart and their average speed decreases. Wrong. Their average speed increases. Wrong. Whenever your temperature is constant, your average speed remains constant. Whenever your temperature is constant, your average speed remains constant. Why? Because temperature is directly proportional to kinetic energy. If temperature is constant, average speed is constant, kinetic energy is constant. So, what will your answer be here? What will your answer be here? As your gas is expanding, your volume increases, so the particles move further apart. But their average speed remains unchanged. Why? Because temperature is constant. C is your answer. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. The air in each of the four syringes, the air in each of the four syringes is slowly compressed. Perfect. Your volume has been decreased. Perfect. So that the temperature of the air remains constant. Temperature is remaining constant. That means Boyle's law will be applicable. Perfect. The volume before and after compression for each syringe are given in the table. Perfect. The air in all four syringes is initially at the same pressure. Let's say the initial pressure of all the four syringes is P. Which syringe shows the smallest pressure change? Which syringe shows the smallest pressure change? So let's assume the initial pressure of all the syringes is P. बेटा let's assume सारे ही syringes में initial pressure क्या है P. Perfect. You have to see which syringe is giving the smallest pressure change. So, what do you have to do here? You have to calculate the final pressures. Because you have to calculate the final pressure here first of all. How will you do that? P1 V1 is equals to P2 V2. Perfect. Let's do it for option number A. What is pressure 1 P? What is volume 1? 50. What is pressure 2 or final pressure? Unknown. What is volume 2? 10. Can you realize that the pressure 2 for option number A is what? 5P. Can you realize that the final pressure or pressure 2 for option A is what? 5P. Let's do the same thing for all the options. Let's do the same thing for all the options. Let's do it for option number B. P1 V1 is equals to P2 V2. What is pressure 1? P. What is volume 1? 100. What is pressure 2? Unknown. What is volume 2? 50. 2P is equals to your final pressure in part B. Let's do it for part C. P1 V1 is equals to P2 V2. P1 is P. V1 is 400. P2 is unknown. V2 is 25. What does your pressure 2 comes out to be? Yes, pressure 2 इसके equal आ जाता है बेटा 400 divided by 25. This comes out to be 16 P. Let's do the same thing for part D. P1 V1 is equals to P2 V2. Simple. If you analyze here, what is the initial pressure? P1. The initial volume is 400. P2 and the final volume is 100. 4P comes out to be your pressure 2. Can you guys realize that the smallest increase in pressure, yeah, the smallest change in pressure, which values are giving the smallest change in pressure? Or, in other words, where is the final pressure the smallest? In option B. B is your answer. 17 ka B is your answer. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Do you get this, beta? Is this clear? Any ambiguities here? Yes. Tell me whether this is clear or no. Let's see question number 18. The temperature of a substance is measured with a liquid and glass thermometer. Which physical property changes so that the temperature can be measured? Okay, liquid and glass thermometer में बेटा which physical property should change? The volume of the liquid. Simple as that. B is your answer. Oh, sorry, D is your answer. Boiling and evaporation are different processes. Which statement is correct? Boiling occurs only at the surface. No, evaporation occurs only at the surface. A is incorrect. Evaporation only occurs when the temperature is high enough. No. Evaporation does not change the temperature of a liquid. No. When a boiling liquid is heated, its temperature remains constant. Boiling occurs at a constant temperature known as the boiling point. At a boiling हमेशा at a constant temperature occur करती है. That is known as the boiling point. Let's see this. A glass beaker contains water. When its center of the base is heated, a convection current is set up. Perfect. Which statement explains this? When the center is heated, this convection current is developed. Which statement explains this? The evaporation of water causes air molecules to rise to the surface. No. The evaporation of the expansion of water molecules causes them to rise to the surface. No. The water above the heat source rises because it becomes less dense. Yeah, C is the correct answer. So the water here at the surface gets heated up, expands, and become less dense. Hence it rises. To fill the place of this water, cooler water or more dense water from the top falls to the ground. C is your answer. Yes, this is thoda sa time for you guys to ask any questions if you have in the next 10 questions. MCQ number 10 से लेकर 20 तक किसी को कोई सवाल they can ask right now. Just giving you 1 minute. देख लो कोई सवाल हो you can ask. Let's move on to question 21. A hot meal is supplied in a container made of shiny metal foil. Okay, a hot meal is supplied in a container made of shiny metal foil. Why does the container help to keep the food hot? बेटा कंटेनर फूड को हॉट करने में किस तरह मदद करता है? Why does the container help to keep the food hot? Okay, now understand what is happening. Beta, you have to give an answer that is, you can say, matching of the that matches the current scenario. So the container traps air, which increases convection. No. The foil is a poor thermal conductor. No. Shiny metal is a good absorber of infrared radiation. No. Shiny metal is a poor emitter of infrared radiation. This keeps the meal hot. It doesn't allow the heat to escape. D is your answer. Simple as that. Also, beta, why are you guys not telling the answers before me? Why not C? बेटा C तो सबसे नालायक ऑप्शन है. C is the most नालायक ऑप्शन. क्या शाइनी मेटल्स गुड एब्जॉर्बर्स होते हैं? नो. डल ब्लैक सरफेसेस आर गुड एब्जॉर्बर्स ऑफ हीट. बिल्कुल ही नालायक ऑप्शन है सी तो. सी इज वेरी वेरी बैड ऑप्शन. लेट्स सी क्वेश्चन नंबर 22. Which quantity is defined as the number of wavelength passing a point per second? What is the quantity that is defined as the number of wavelength passing per unit second? Frequency. B is your answer. Frequency has two definitions: number of wavelength passing a point per unit second or number of oscillations per unit second. Let's further move ahead. Let's move on to 23. A plane mirror forms the image of an object. What are the characteristics of the image formed? Okay. So a plane mirror forms an image. The image will be virtual. The image will be same size as the object. A plane mirror, if a plane mirror forms an image, it has three properties. If a plane mirror forms an image, it has three properties: virtual, upright, and same size. Virtual, upright, and same size. B is your answer. Simple. Let's move on to question 24. A ray of light strikes the surface of a glass block at an incidence angle of incidence this. The refractive index is this. Calculate the angle of refraction. Okay. So which formula will we apply? N is equals to sine I over sine R. What is N? 1.8. What is angle of incidence? 45. Can you calculate angle of refraction? Yes or no? Yes, you can easily do that. Sine 45 divided by 1.8. Take a sine inverse. Your answer will be R comes out to be 23 degrees. A is your answer. Simple as that. Nothing complicated. If someone doesn't understand the calculations that I have done here, beta, just what I have done here is sine of R is equals to sine 45 divided by 1.8. R is equals to sine inverse sine 45 divided by 1.8. This is your answer. Simple as that. You get your answer as 23 degree. A is your answer. Simple as that. Nothing complicated. Let's move on to question 25. Which diagram shows rays of light passing through a converging lens? Okay, which diagram shows rays of light passing through a converging lens? Now, it's very, very easy to spot. It's very, very easy to spot if you have studied converging and diverging lens. A cannot be your answer because the rays have started to diverge. B can be your possible option. Why? Because can you see the rays were diverging when they pass through the lens? They have started to get close to each other. So B can be your option. Now you can remember this. Converging lens brings rays closer together. Diverging lens moves rays away from each other. Perfect. Let's further move ahead. Now, a student has asked, Sir, C क्यों नहीं हो सकता? Why not C? Very good. बेटा, if you examine C में क्या हो रहा है? What is happening in C? चलो, let's see. Exam C में क्या हो रहा है? Let's make a line like this. Let's make a line like this. अच्छा, now this is for the curious students. If you are able to spot B as your answer, फिर आपको ये ख्वारी करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. This is just for the curious students. Now what you can do is you can extend the lines. If the rays remain on the same path, beta, if the rays remain on the same path, just as before hitting the lens, they would have meet here. They would have meet here. लेकिन लेंस की वजह से क्या हो रहा है? They have started to diverge. They have started to diverge. Can you see now? They will meet at a further away point. The lens has caused the rays to diverge. This is the way of checking divergence. This is the way of checking divergence. Now they are meeting at this point. So the mirror or the lens has definitely causes the ray to diverge because अब एक further away point पे meet कर रहे हो. Clear हो गई ये बात? Any ambiguities here? Yes, जिन्होंने C का पूछा था, why is C not the answer? चलो, let's move ahead भाई. Now, second. हाँ, 26 पे आ जाओ. A beam of white light is incident on a glass prism. Perfect. X and Y are two ends of the visible spectrum. Perfect. Which statement is correct? Which statement is correct? All light travels with the same speed in the prism. Very laughable statement. A is laughable. Light at X has a lower frequency than the light at Y. Yeah. You know that whenever white light passes through prism, red light is at the top, violet is at the bottom. Red light has the highest lambda and lowest frequency, and violet has the lowest lambda, highest frequency. Simple as that. Let's further move ahead. Which components of electromagnetic spectrum are used to communicate from a remote controller to a television set and from Earth to a satellite? Whenever you have to communicate from a remote controller to a TV set, you will use infrared radiations. C and D gets cancelled out. Whenever you have to communicate from Earth to a satellite, you will be using microwaves. A is your answer. Let's further move ahead. Let's see this. A student claps his hand in front of a wall and hears the echoes. He claps at the same moment as he hears the echoes of the previous clap. Perfect. Another student starts a stopwatch on the first clap and stop it on the 11th clap. Perfect. The reading on the stopwatch is 9.4 and the speed of sound is 320 ms minus 1. What is the distance x between the student and the wall? We have to calculate the distance x between the student and the wall. How are we going to do this? Yes, any ideas, geniuses? Anyone who would like to tell us कि क्या आंसर होगा इसका? Any geniuses in the chat? What will we do here? Yes. If you analyze closely what is happening, you start the stopwatch on the first clap and you stop the stopwatch on the 11th clap. What does this mean? What does this mean? This means that this 9.4 seconds, this means that this 9.4 seconds is the time for 10 echoes. This means that this time of 9.4 seconds is the time for 10 echoes. Now you will say, sir, how do you know that? Let me give you a very easy example. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Let's say you start your stopwatch at the first clap. Okay, you have started your stopwatch here at the first clap. The time taken for the second clap to receive will be your time for the first echo. This will be the second echo. This will be the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th. On the first clap, you start the stopwatch. बेटा जब सेकेंड क्लैप की आवाज आएगी दैट मीन्स व्हाट ऑन द फर्स्ट क्लैप यू स्टार्ट द स्टॉप वॉच when you hear the sound of the second clap that means what you have traveled this entire black distance once so that means 9.4 seconds is taking a time of 10 echoes. What will be the time for one echo? Yes, what will be the time for one echo? Can you guys tell me? The time for one echo will be what? 0.94 seconds. Perfect. Now you have the time taken for this entire journey is 0.94 seconds. नहीं आई बात समझ? अच्छा आगे चलो. 0.94 seconds is the time taken for this entire journey. Now, आपको पता है बेटा पूरे जर्नी का टाइम है 0.94. The speed is 320. Can you calculate the distance of the entire journey? Yes, distance is equal to speed into time. The speed is 320. Time is 0.94. The distance comes out to be 300.8 meters. But this distance is for the entire journey. This distance is for the entire journey. You only need this distance x. So what will you do? You will divide it by 2 to get the value of x. This comes out to be 150 meters. B is your answer. Is this difficult question clear to all of you? बेटा सबको ये डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चन समझ आया है यस और नो क्लियर हुई ये बात बेटा ये चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं लेट्स मूव अहेड अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह दिस वाज वन ऑफ द हार्डेस्ट क्वेश्चन इन दिस पेपर ये इस पेपर का हार्डेस्ट क्वेश्चन था सो इफ यू गेट दिस वन कंग्रेचुलेट योरसेल्फ चलो क्वेश्चन 29 पे आ जाओ A compass is placed close to a strong bar magnet and pivots to the position shown. Perfect. This is the position of the compass. Which type of magnet is a compass needle and what is the pole X? Always remember that the needle of the compass points in the direction of the magnetic field. That means the direction of the magnetic field is like this. That means the direction of the magnetic field is this. This can only happen if the magnetic field lines are originating from point X and are going inside this point. Okay, so first of all, you need to realize that the needle of a compass is made from a permanent magnet. Option A and B will get cancelled out. What is this pole X? This pole X is emitting magnetic field lines, hence this is a north pole. C is your answer. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. Plastic and wool are insulating materials. Sample of plastic and wool are rubbed together. This causes a transfer of electrons. Perfect. Which row shows the direction of electron transfer and the final charge on both the material? Perfect. Let's say plastic gains electron. So plastic should be what? Negatively charged. This A option is wrong. Let's examine option B. Let's say plastic gains electrons, it will have a negative charge. Yeah. Wool loses electrons, it will have a positive charge. B is the correct answer. B is the correct answer. Let's further move ahead. Which circuit contains a heater and a fuse? Always remember this is the symbol of a heater. These small little squares in a box is a symbol of a heater. What is the symbol of a fuse? This is the symbol of a fuse. Where are the heater and fuse connected together? Only in option B. In option B, you have a heater and a fuse connected together. In option B, you have a heater and a fuse connected together. Let's further move ahead. Let's see question number 32. A light dependent resistor LDR is to be used as an input sensor for an intruder alarm system. Perfect. When there is no light on the LDR, the lamp switches on. Perfect. The resistance of the fixed resistor is less than that of the lamp. Perfect. So there are many things happening here. Let's see. A light dependent resistor is to be used as an input sensor for an intruder alarm circuit. Perfect. So a light dependent resistor here LDR is used for an intruder alarm system. When there is no light on the LDR, the lamp switches on. Perfect. When there is no light on the LDR, the lamp switches on. Let's highlight this as well. There is no light on the LDR, the lamp switches on. Perfect. The resistance of the fixed resistor is less than that of the lamp. Perfect. The resistance of the fixed resistor, that is this resistor, is less than that of the lamp. Perfect. Which diagram shows the circuit? Perfect. Now you must remember one thing. You must remember one thing. When there is no light, when there is no light on the LDR, if there is no light on the LDR, what will happen? The resistance of LDR will be greater. If the resistance of LDR is greater, the voltage across the LDR will be greater. Okay. So if the voltage across LDR is greater, that means when there is no light, LDR will be receiving a higher voltage. If LDR is receiving a higher voltage, then the lamp must be connected in parallel to the LDR. Why is that the case? Why should the lamp be connected parallel to the LDR? Because if we connect lamp parallel to the LDR, the lamp will also receive a higher voltage and the lamp switches on. So I know one thing. Lamp must be connected parallel to the LDR. Which scenario is that? B is your scenario. B is your answer. Is this question clear to all of you बेटा? ये सवाल समझ आई तुम लोग को? Yes or no? A potential difference of 4 volts produces a current of 3 ampere in a resistor. How much energy is transferred to thermal energy during 10 seconds? So we know one thing. Voltage is equals to work done over charge. Perfect. Voltage into charge is equals to your work done. Voltage is 4. How can you represent charge? Current into time is equals to your work done. 4 into what is the current? 3 into what is the time? That is 10. This equals to your work done. 4 into 3 into 10. This comes out to be 120 joules as your work done. D is your answer. Let's further move ahead. Okay, so let's see this. The diagram shows an AC generator. Perfect. The diagram shows a generator, or you can say an AC generator. What are X and Y? What are X and Y? We have to tell what is X and Y. If this is North Pole, if this is North Pole, this pole X will be your South Pole. So option A and B gets cancelled out. Now, what are these? What are these Y? What are these things labeled Y? Since this is a generator, these are your slip rings. D is your answer. Always remember, whenever you have a AC generator, the rings are known as slip rings. And whenever you have a DC motor, whenever you have a DC motor, your rings are known as what? Split ring commutators. Split ring commutators. Simple as that. Let's further move ahead. The diagram shows a loudspeaker that is producing a sound. Perfect. A student writes four statements about the loudspeaker. There is a direct current in the coil of the wire. Bilkul incorrect. Loudspeaker always works on an AC current. The current in a coil produces changing magnetic field. Yeah, this is correct. A force is produced on the wire of the coil attached to the cone. Yeah, this is also correct. The cone spins around due to the force. No, this is incorrect. 2 and 3 are correct. C is your answer. Only statements 2 and 3 are correct. C is your answer. Let's further move ahead. A step down transformer changes voltage of 240 to 12. Perfect. There are 600 turns on the primary coil. How many turns are there on the secondary coil? Perfect. So this is your primary voltage. This is your secondary voltage. These are your number of turns on the primary coil. This is VP. This is VS. This is NP. You have to calculate NS. Which formula will we apply? VP over VS is equals to NP over NS. What is your primary voltage? Primary voltage is 240. What is your secondary voltage? 12. What is your primary number of turns? 600. What is your secondary number of turns? NS. This becomes 1. This becomes 20. NS comes out to be what? 600 divided by 20. This comes out to be what? 30. 30. B is your answer. Simple as that. Nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. Alpha particles are directed at a thin gold foil. Perfect. Only a very small portion of the alpha particles are deflected through very large angles. Only a very small portion is deflected through very large angles. Which fact about the nuclei of the gold atom is not a conclusion of this experiment? Okay. What is not a conclusion of this experiment? They are surrounded by mostly empty spaces. They are small. They contain most of the mass of the atom. They contain protons and neutrons. The option D cannot be a conclusion. Why? The option D is not a conclusion of this experiment. We concluded that atoms have empty spaces. We concluded that nuclei is small. We concluded that most of the mass of the atom lies in the nucleus. But we didn't conclude that the nucleus contains protons and neutrons. Beta, this was not a conclusion of this experiment. Please remember this. We never concluded that the nucleus contains neutrons in this experiment. A radioactive isotope containing only emitting only gamma radiation is placed in front of a radiation detector which measures the count rate. What must cause the count rate to increase? Okay. Basically, a radioactive source emitting only gamma radiation is placed in front of a radiation detector. What must cause the count rate to increase? Sorry, what must cause the count rate to increase? A thick sheet of lead placed between the source and the detector? No, this decreases the count rate. A strong magnetic field placed between the detector and the source? No. The radioactive source must be moved closer to the detector. Yeah, this increases the count rate. C is your answer. Nuclear fusion is one source of energy. Perfect. What is nuclear fusion? What is nuclear fusion? The decay of a radioactive nucleus. The joining together of two nucleuses to make a larger nucleus. Yes. Nuclear fusion, as the name suggests, is the fusing of two nucleuses. This occurs in what? This occurs mainly in sun and stars. B is your answer. Let's further move ahead. Let's see this one. Which statement is correct? The orbital speed of the Earth around the Sun is what? 2 pi into the average diameter divided by the orbital period? No. This should have been the average radius. The orbit of the Earth around the Sun is an ellipse. B is your correct answer. Earth orbits the Sun in an elliptical orbit. Any questions here? This marks the end of this paper.